Good Friday night / Saturday morning. Welcome to More Sports and Les Levine. NFL Draft Special, Day 2, Rounds 2 and 3, along with Les Levine. I'm Dave Bacon. The Browns did make 3 picks in the second and third round, traded back a couple of times, acquired more picks both this year and next year. Let's take a look. All defensive players, all from the SEC. They trade back a couple spots, still get a really good safety from LSU, Grant Delpit. In the third round, they trade back further, get a 5th-round pick this year and a 3rd-round pick next year. They take Jordan Elliott from Missouri. They also took Jacob Phillips from LSU. Les, when you look at it, a couple of guys from LSU, national champs, another guy from Missouri, SEC. Just a reaction to the 3 defensive players they picked.
Number one, they saved money on travel for the scouts, so that wasn't too bad. I think the pick of Delpit is terrific. I'm not even sure why he was moved down. Some people were afraid of him for some reason. You and I talked about it. He might have had trouble putting the ball carrier or the receiver down and making sure he doesn't get much yardage. But he's not afraid of getting his face in there and getting into the mix of things. I think Delpit is a great pick. The others are reaches. They need linebackers. This wasn't a great linebacking core this year. They needed more depth on defense, so they handled that. Whether those are the right guys, I don't know, but I like the pick of Delpit.
And you mentioned Delpit, and there are concerns about his tackling. Yep. A lot of missed tackles, but he did play a significant, in fact, most of this season with a high ankle sprain.
Right.
If you're a safety trying to cover, the middle of the field and you can't run well, that's a problem, obviously.
Well, but I think the scouts knew that, and that was figured into the equation. I don't think he lost that many points on that. But, he was the Thorpe Award winner, best in the country at that position, and I don't know how you can go wrong with that.
He did play through the high ankle sprain. Physical demeanor helps in the run defense, gets downhill, knows his fits. Now, the thing that they say is a concern, range as a high safety is very average, and that's something he's going to need to really clean up, take care of, especially in the NFL.
And he won't have that much time to do it. There won't be that much practice time. So whether I doubt that he'd be a starter based on that.
It's hard to say. He'll get every opportunity,
sure.
Obviously. You look at Jordan Elliott, this is a guy, he was second team All-American this year. Now, the thing is this is really the first year he's shown the type of player that he was expected to be coming out. He was top 100 recruit.
Right.
Went to Texas, where he's from. He's from Texas. Didn't work out. Had a MCL injury. Transferred to Missouri. Was spotty his first year. This was his second year there, his junior year, and he was a second-team All-American and a guy that started to put things together. 10 tackles for loss, a concern, slow off the ball.
Right. And we even saw that. You and I were watching tape, and if you and I notice it.
Exactly. The first thing you notice is, it's not quick off the ball. Now, the linebacker that they took is Jacob Phillips, linebacker from LSU,
right.
National champion, was the leading tackler. Now, he kind of assumed a leadership role with the Tigers, but he's not that kind of guy. The knock on him is he's not the alpha demeanor guy that you want in the middle of the field as a linebacker.
You got Joe Burrow on your team, even though it's offense. You don't need that guy on both sides of the ball.
But the knock on him is, can he be that physical presence and that guy that goes and gets it? Not great strength or the alpha demeanor. The one thing that is a huge plus with him, learns from his mistakes, makes adjustments in games, is a team-first guy. And he led the team, the national champs, led the team with over 110 tackles.
That's a pretty good thing to have on your resume.
Yeah, and 7.5 tackles for loss as well. So a guy that's used to winning and a guy that, is from a program that's used to winning.
And playing in front of a lot of people every week, national TV every week. He's not going to be afraid of the spotlight.
And, a team that's used to winning and playing against high-level competition. The other thing about Grant Delpit is very familiar with one of the Browns' cornerbacks, Greedy Williams, who he played with after, last year. Greedy was an LSU guy that came to the Browns. So Delpit excited to be back with his former teammate, Greedy Williams.
We go all the way back to practice 2017. I miss my dude. It's going to be great to play with him again. It's going to be great to have one of the best secondaries in the NFL also. So we're looking forward to it. Yeah, like I said, like they call it the LSU of the North. Now it's really turned the truth, but I can't wait to compete against those guys. Seeing, we're so close. I think we're so close to winning. We just need a championship mentality. I'll bring it to the defense for sure. Yeah, I had a high ankle sprain middle of the season, out of week 7 and week 8, and it was tough. It was like Sunday mornings, I could barely walk, but I wanted to be there for my team. I think that just me being hurt was something that I wasn't worried about. I came to LSU with my dream. I wasn't going to let a sprained ankle, keep me from off the field, trying to win a national championship. So I want to say, show my brothers that, I wasn't going to be their side. I wasn't selfish, and it worked out. I can't wait to, I got something to prove, me going into the season, dealing with this adversity, and coming out a better overall man, a better overall football player. So I'm so excited to get back on the field, man. You don't even know.
Grant Delpit, excited to add him to the team. Grant, we really viewed him as a big, versatile playmaker. He's been a really kind of an impact player for LSU over the past 2 seasons. Our appeal to Grant is the fact that you're really just his coverage ability. He's a guy who can play the post, he can play near the line of scrimmage, he can cover tight ends, walk over a slot and hold his own against receivers. And he's been a consistent ball producer throughout his career at LSU. The other thing that stood out to us about Grant is just his toughness. He played through this season, really a lot of the year, with a high ankle sprain that would have put a lot of players out of commission for a longer period of time. And then the other thing, everyone we talked to at the LSU talked about how bright Grant is and how quickly he can process and understand anything football related. And we found that to be the case when we met with him. He was certainly one of the more impressive interviews that we had at the combine from a football intelligence standpoint. So we're excited to add him to the roster. We think he's a talented young safety that can be a productive member of our team.
And, of course, Andrew Berry talking about Grant Delpit. Also heard from Grant Delpit, a number of LSU Tigers now on the Browns.
As a general rule, you can't go wrong taking LSU or Alabama. By the way, Ohio State's only 120 miles away.
Here's the thing. The interesting thing about Delpit, and you saw it a little bit in that video, he's kind of all over the board with his angles, and that's one of the knocks on him and why he misses tackle. Right. They say he misses tackles in a variety of ways. It's not exactly what you're looking for in the scouting report.
Very consistent.
But they say that it can be cleaned up, and one of the things that you notice with that is he doesn't really – they're inconsistent. That's something that you can coach out and teach, right. And I think that's one of the things they realize. Some of the mistakes that he's making, they can correct pretty quickly.
You would think, however, that LSU, no matter how good the league is, how good the competition is, there are plenty of weeks where there's not all that much they need to do, and you'd think that working on the tackling might be one of the things they would try to accomplish.
Right, but again, it'll be a different level. You know
Sure.
what I mean? The technique in that, there will be a position coach who I am sure his job will be make sure you correct this guy's path to the ball carrier. So once he gets there, get him down, and he has all the athleticism and all the things that they look for in terms of height, and he's really good with the ball in the air as well. Time for us to take a quick timeout. We'll be joined by a couple of cleveland.com Browns beat reporters. We'll also check in with Nathan Baird down in Columbus and talk some Buckeyes, a number of Buckeyes. Heard their name called. More sports and less Levine. The NFL Draft Special Day 2 will continue. Stay with us right here on cleveland.com.
Celebrate NatureStone's 30-year anniversary with a free NatureStone floor. During 2020, we will be giving away 30 free floors to 30 very lucky customers to say thank you for making NatureStone the best concrete flooring solution for garages, basements, and more. Call or visit naturestone.com today to register to win, and we'll send you a copy of our new buyer's guide absolutely free. There's no purchase necessary. Winners will be chosen monthly. With over 30 million square feet installed for more than 60,000 customers, it's easy to see why I always say it's not just a floor. Wow, it's NatureStone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine. The NFL Draft Special Day 2. Browns went defense on Day 2 as we thought they might. Let's welcome in Browns beat reporter Dan Labbe. Dan, you heard all of the press conferences and the Browns' reaction. What stood out to you, especially about Kevin Stefanski and his reaction to the three guys with SEC ties that the Browns selected today on the defensive side of the ball?
Well, I mean, he mentioned that if you're going to target a conference, not that the Browns were necessarily targeting a conference, but if you were going to target a conference, you could certainly do worse than the SEC. And, look, Kevin Stefanski, the offensive head coach, but he made it very clear that that's not really how he wants to be known. He was involved in these picks. He cares about the defensive side of the ball. Certainly he was going to let those defensive assistants and Joe Woods, have their input in all of this. But Kevin Stefanski seemed very excited for a defense-heavy draft day, even though he's really the offensive guy in all of this.
I'm wondering, the way they were forced into having the draft physically, you don't have hangers-on in the war room. You don't have the owners hanging around. I'm just wondering if this will be the new norm over the next couple of years.
That's actually a really interesting point, that you just don't have people who can walk in and out of that room over the course of a night. And I don't know about you guys, but I've kind of enjoyed watching this draft and sort of observing it with, smaller groups of people at the players' homes, and of course the coaches and scouting staffs all in different places. And they probably don't enjoy that. They probably all want to be together in one room, but I've kind of enjoyed how the virtual draft has played out, and I thought tonight it was a little sharper than it was last night from a broadcast standpoint. It's been really interesting to watch.
What about your reaction? I asked you what Kevin Stefanski said. You're a guy that's covered this team and has seen a lot of Browns football, which, I tip my hat to you for that over the past several years. What's your reaction to the guys they took on the defensive side of the ball today?
I'm not surprised it was a defense-heavy day. It's sort of what I expected. I thought maybe they could sneak a wide receiver in, or, I keep pounding that drum for maybe taking a tight end at some point, but they did go defense-heavy, obviously. I liked the Delpit pick. He's a guy that I thought they would maybe take at number 41 to begin with. They trade down. They get that fifth-round pick they didn't have back, so now they have that tomorrow, and they get a really good player. We'll see how that trade down from 74 plays out, because there was a really good player there the Saints ended up picking in Zach Bond, and I wonder how he would have fit here in Cleveland. The Browns took a linebacker later in Jacob Phillips. So we got to watch those two guys, right? And then they take an interior lineman in Jordan Elliott, who's kind of I don't want to say a workout guy. I mean, he's had production, but not the type of production necessarily that you want. So he's got to, he gets into the backfield, but he's got to finish plays and do some things like that. So the last two guys they picked, we'll see. I love the Grant Delpit pick, though. I think that's a really good safety. There are the tackling issues. He's got to get that figured out. But if he can do that, he could be really good on the back end of that defense.
Dave, you and I were surprised. Bond was there, ready to be taken, and they chose not to. Wonder what's wrong with it.
It could be something as simple as doesn't fit. You know what I mean? In the type of guy they want. Dan, when you look at what you expect coming up, I mean, they've addressed what everybody thought was the major needs. Is there anything that you see as, really glaring that needs to be addressed in day 3?
I'd still like to see them try to add a playmaker. But the thing about day 3 is it's kind of a throwing darts kind of day, especially as you get, in the 4th round, sometimes you find some guys, but then you get to the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and of course right now the Browns don't have a 7th round pick, but you get into those rounds, you're sort of throwing darts. So I almost expect them to really embrace that best player available mantra. And even if it seems like a little bit of a weird pick, or hey, they're already okay at this position, they might just take a guy because he's there and because you can never have enough talent. And you're really just taking flyers on guys on day 3. But if you are looking at specific positions, I still think there's room for a playmaker here. Some kind of wide receiver. I think there's still some guys on this board in this really deep wide receiver class that could help this football team.
I know the Browns signed a kick returner, but is there any kick returner out there in the next 2 rounds?
I think any playmaker they would take, like a wide receiver, would almost have to be able to play special teams to some degree. I think it's probably, obviously they played a game tomorrow, which they obviously don't have to. It would be JoJo Natson, but I think they'll throw everything they can at that position, and they'll let guys compete. So if you're a wide receiver and you come in here and you're a 4th, 5th, 6th round guy, and they say, hey, we want you to return kicks, you can't really say no. You've got to be able to play special teams and do what they want you to do to be able to make that roster.
Now, we've already said it seems like they might have been throwing darts the last couple of picks they made. But based on what the front office has done in the first 2 days, reaction, just overall reaction. I mean, I think if you would have told Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, you're going to be able to get Jedrick Wills and Grant Delpit, they'd have said, hey, we're in pretty good shape.
That's really it. Those first 2 picks, you got your left tackle and you got your safety, and it made sense. We all kind of said these are the 2 areas that they need to address early in the draft, either with their first 2 picks or their first 3 picks. And they addressed them with their first 2 picks, and they added a little draft capital to go with it without really hurting their chances. I would be curious to find out why they didn't want Zach Bond. I'd be a little curious. I mean, this is that moment where you put your cards on the table, and they did, and they said they don't want him. We'll watch that as we go. But at the very least, those first 2 picks, you had 2 needs. You filled those 2 needs, and you've got to be happy with that part of it.
Well, Trent Williams probably is a name we're not going to hear for a while now. But are there any people out there after this is done tomorrow that the Browns are going to focus in on as far as the trade is concerned?
I wouldn't expect any kind of big trade, just because I think, a lot of that would have probably involved some sort of draft asset. But, if they were to take maybe another tight end and maybe they don't like David Njoku, I don't know how they really truly feel about David Njoku and his future. But, he could be a guy that maybe they'd want to move if they added a tight end or something like that. But I don't think there's really a big trade on the horizon after this.
Dan Labbe, as always, we appreciate the time and the insight. Dan Labbe, Browns beat reporter. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. When we return, we'll hear from Ellis Williams, another one of the Browns beat reporters, does a lot of film breakdown. Ellis Williams straight ahead on More Sports and Less Levine. The draft special for day 2 of the NFL draft. Stay with us.
As a kid growing up, my dream was to go to college, play baseball, and get a degree. Coming out of high school, I had 2 choices. I was accepted into a 4-year university, but I decided to come to Tri-C after receiving a scholarship. I got my associate's degree at Tri-C. They transferred all my credits straight into Baldwin-Wallace, so I started at Baldwin-Wallace University as a junior. My name is Tyler Leonard, and I earned my first degree at Tri-C.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
It takes attention to detail. With your local Bryant dealer, you're getting more than just a technician. You're getting someone who pays attention to your needs and the little things that make a big difference. It takes a dealer you can rely on And to keep your family warm this winter,
Here, let me show you how this works.
it takes Bryant.
Bryant. Whatever it takes.
And to keep your family comfortable, it takes Smiley One Heating and Cooling. Find them at smiley1.com.
Welcome back to More Sports and Les Levine, the NFL Draft Special Day 2, along with Les Levine. I'm Dave Bacon. Time to welcome in another of the Browns beat reporters here on cleveland.com, Ellis Williams. Ellis does a lot of the film breakdown and look at guys. Ellis, Day 2, Browns address defense, 3 guys selected, all from the SEC. Just some thoughts on what the Browns did here in Day 2.
Yeah, well, first let's start with Grant Delpit right at the top. Probably was going to be the guy at 41. He's there at 44 after a trade. This young man is considered by Pro Football Focus and others to be the top safety in the class. I think he was like the 25th player on their big board. So the Browns grabbing a lot of value there in the analytics community. He's a traditional free safety. He can come down and play slot, corner, box if you'd like, but that's where he gets in trouble with his tackling. He was beat up his junior year last season. I think that's why his tackling hindered. For the most part, I think it's a pretty safe pick, and the young man has a lot of upside. Like you said, they kept it on defense. Jordan Elliott after that. Real athletic young man in space. He's going to win in small spaces, but he just didn't make enough plays to garner that day 1 selection. I think that had to do with a lot of the double teams he picked up at Missouri. Real team player. D-line is about taking on assignments so your other guys can eat sometimes, and that doesn't get you sack numbers. It doesn't get you tackle for a loss, but it's valuable on tape, and that's what I saw. And then wrapping up with Jacob Phillips. He's the one that, I don't want to say it's a head scratcher, but just a name I don't think many people are ready for. He's a project linebacker. He'll have an opportunity to play on special teams probably right from day 1. Modern NFL build, 6'3", about 240-ish, 235. Lean, can run straight line, can't change direction well. So a project there, but overall the defense got better today, and they found some value with those first 2 picks and a project to wrap up the end of the round there. So another solid effort by GM Andrew Berry, I think.
Going back to Delpit and talking about his tackling problem, we're told they're different problems. It's not the same one problem. Are they fixable, or aren't they multiple?
Yeah, I think they're fixable. Where he gets in trouble sometimes is when he has to read and react and get in situations that are murky for him. And the simplest way to say that is when he's in the box. When he's down there trying to dig out runs, taking on extra blockers, taking on a tight end, and when he has to see things not that quickly and go for the tackle, he grabs some ankles and has some poor form. Where he's a sound tackler is playing deep safety, going to break up seam routes. He's going to hit some tight ends in the AFC North. I think his tackling is being a little bit overblown, but we're going to have to wait and see. These things could carry over, but the injury, when you're injured in your shoulder, that is going to make you're going to become more of an arm tackler there because you don't want to take another stinger. And with an ankle injury, you're not as explosive. Your angles aren't there. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt here, and I think his tackling can be corrected at the next level.
You mentioned something that's plagued the Browns defense for 4 or 5 years, and that's safety, deep tight ends. Is this a guy that can make sure that tight ends aren't running crazy in the middle of the Browns defense, which has been a huge problem for this franchise?
Yeah, huge problem. And just what I saw last year, you think of the Seattle Seahawks, the Baltimore Ravens, especially in that second game, in the end of the second half, they just tore up the middle of the field. At will. So what Grant Delpit can do there, he's long, 6'3", about a 74-inch wingspan. I'm not sure day 1 he's going to come in and be the guy you put man-to-man on one of the better tight ends in the NFL, but he's going to grow into that, I think. He has the natural physical frame to get into a tight end space, and he could become a tight end eliminator. You don't want to compare him to a former top safety in the league, but that's what we do on draft night. So you think of Eric Berry, who was a Kansas City Chief for a long time. I remember those matchups with him and Gronk, one-on-one. Sometimes Gronk won, sometimes Berry eliminated him from the play. I think that's his ceiling if we're talking his ability to shut down opposing tight ends.
They didn't make a trade last night, and they made a couple today. Was that all expected?
I I think with this front office, you really don't know what to expect. They're going to do what's best for the franchise. They don't fall in love with certain players, and they're willing to risk them not being there. Look, when they traded out with the Saints and passed on Zach Bond, who's a linebacker out of Wisconsin, look, Barry's not going to – he's made it clear he's not going to talk about players who are on his team, but just with the type of player Zach Bond is, you have to think that's a guy they were targeting, but they're fine with trading out of the pick. The Saints land him, and the Browns still address linebacker at the end of that round. So they're going to do what's best for them in that moment, and they're proving that, look, we'll stand pat like we did on day one, or we'll wheel and deal on day two. And they're the first team of this virtual draft to land a pick for the 2021 draft. So next year we'll be talking about a third-round pick that they actually got tonight. And I think that's exciting, especially when you think about how this team continues to build and how they're flexible on the defensive side of the ball.
When you look at this roster, Ellis, what do you see as needs still? They obviously addressed a couple of them. Safety was one, I think. The linebacker core was certainly one. What do you see as areas that they could still upgrade and improve?
Yeah, you got a few of them up there. I think the Browns need to leave this draft with another offensive lineman, probably a guard. That was pretty clear going into this, and I'd be pretty surprised if they don't. I wouldn't mind another linebacker, but with how they've addressed the position, it probably isn't clearly a spot they're prioritizing. So with that, I got to look at cornerback. I still think they need a slot corner, unless they think Delpit is going to come in and play slot corner for them, and they'll have their two other safeties, Johnson and Sendejo, handle that. I would like to see another corner, though. You think of the Miami Dolphins, who just loaded up with 3 solid guys. I don't think you can have enough corners in this league. And then offensive side of the ball, it's time to address wide receiver and maybe land another tight end. You think of Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, and Austin Hooper. Those are big names at the front, but where's the depth at those positions? One injury could alter the whole offense. If Austin Hooper goes down, I'm sure Kevin Stefanski knows that, and he doesn't want to roll the dice with it. So I could see them landing a wide receiver and a tight end, along with another corner and lineman. Those are the spots to look for as this draft wraps up tomorrow.
At this point, if they had a good draft, or is it too early to tell? I don't mean years down the road. I'm talking about tonight and tomorrow.
Yeah, actually, I think I'm pretty comfortable saying they've had a really good draft, and we'll just compare them quickly to the Green Bay Packers. I know it's NFC North compared to the AFC North, but I'm here in Minnesota, so I hear a lot of my friends complain about the Packers. They've drafted a quarterback with their first pick. We won't talk about that, but with their other 2 picks, they addressed running back and then grabbed a tight end who had a 6th-round grade who probably projects as a fullback. Meanwhile, the Browns are drafting a guy, Grant Delpit, PFF had as their 25th best player. Elliott, who's a guy who it might be a little Sheldon Richardson comp there with a lot of upside. And then a linebacker project who's got a lot of athleticism. So I can talk about the upside of these picks and 2 potential starters on day 2. So overall, I think this is a pretty solid draft. And when the experts start coming out with their draft rankings, I'd be pretty surprised if the Browns have anywhere lower than a B, if not into the A- range right now.
Let's talk day 3. I know you dig in and take a look at some of the more obscure names. Who are some names to listen out for that you like that could be called by the Browns in day 3?
Yeah, so bear with me here. I got a list. Meek Robertson, Louisiana Tech cornerback, Keem Davis-Genther, Appalachian State outside linebacker. Like both those guys. For tight ends, Harrison Bryant, Florida Atlantic, Hunter Bryant, another tight end, Washington. And then the guy I like, Cheyenne O'Garrity, Arkansas. I've talked about him at length before. Huge guy, 6'5". Those other 2 tight ends are smaller guys, specifically at Washington. Linebacker, Troy Day. 2 more corners to watch. These would be more 6th, 7th round guys. AJ Green, John Reed. And then let's talk receiver to wrap this up. I've talked about him a lot on this show. Tyler Johnson, University of Minnesota Golden Gophers. He's still available. Not surprised that he is. The team that lands this young man is getting a professional route runner who's going to be ready to make a name for himself after his rookie year, probably. He just needs the opportunity. Kevin Stefanski is actually drafting in Minnesota. Who knows if the ties are there, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns can land him late. And then Ohio State's own KJ Hill. I'm not surprised he's still there either. These route runner, good hands type of guys tend to fall through the cracks and then they're the ones getting second contracts down the line compared to the straight line runners. So I know I just gave you like 10 names there. Some offensive linemen, Ben Bratch, D3 guy, St. John's, actually another Minnesota kid. He's a guy who played tackle, potentially guard. So those are the positions in need, and some guys I think Browns fans shouldn't be surprised if they hear their name called tomorrow.
Ellis Williams, as always, we appreciate the insight, and we like the names to listen out for in day 3 of the NFL draft. Time to take a quick timeout. On the other side of the break, we're going to shift gears, talk some Buckeyes. Nathan Baird joins us. More sports and less Levine. NFL Draft Special Day 2. We'll be right back here on cleveland.com. Stay with us.
You love it, always wanted it, and there's never been a better time to get Nature Stone than during our Spring Weather Breaker sale. We're breaking spring sales records with up to half off beautiful Nature Stone garage floors, patios, porches, and more. Correct cracked, uneven concrete that thin paints and poly coatings can't. Every Weather Breaker savings comes with Russell's Promise, our true unconditional warranty, and there are no hidden maintenance costs. Schedule online today at naturestone.com to qualify for up to half off. Hurry, offer ends April 30th. It's not just a floor, wow, it's Nature Stone.
There are tastes we remember. Every smell brings the happiness of times gone by. Experience this every time you walk into Gallucci's Italian Foods. Whether you need lunch on the go, a catered party, or that perfect blend of wine, meats, and cheeses, Gallucci's has exactly what you're looking for. Straight from Mama's Kitchen for old world traditions or original experiences. From the tastes you remember to new flavors you'll never forget, Gallucci's is a tasty branch of your family tree.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Welcome back to More Sports and Less Levine. NFL Draft Special. Day 2 is the second and third rounds today. Plenty of Ohio State Buckeyes selected today. 3 yesterday, 4 more today. J.K. Dobbins to the Ravens. Also Malik Harrison to the Ravens. In between that, Devon Hamilton and Jonah Jackson drafted by the Jaguars and Lions, respectively. And last that makes 7 Buckeyes drafted in the first 3 rounds.
It's amazing how Cincinnati gets Ohio State guys. Detroit also does. Browns don't.
They're stuck on LSU. We were talking about that earlier. Well, let's welcome in Nathan Baird, Buckeyes beat reporter here on cleveland.com. Nathan, of the guys taken on day 2, those 4 guys that we saw taken today, which ones do you think are set up to succeed that might go on and have an even better NFL career than they had a college career? And they all had pretty good college careers.
Yeah, I don't know if it's easy to predict someone like J.K. Dobbins to have a better NFL career than he did a college career. He rushed for 2,000 yards and 21 touchdowns last year for Ohio State. But, and it was interesting that he fell as far as he did. He was the 5th running back taken in this draft, which I think surprised a lot of people. Went 55th overall. But he couldn't have gone to a much better situation for someone who runs the ball. The Ravens led the NFL in rushing by almost 1,000 yards last year. They had almost 100 more attempts than the runner-up team last year. It's a team that really thrives on the ground, and he's going to a place that knows what to do. And similarly, I think Malik Harrison going to Baltimore, that was already a really good defense. The one thing that was maybe missing for them was someone to come in and help them stop the run. That was of the few weaknesses they had last year, going 14-2. I think they could have stopped the run a little bit better, and he's somebody that can help them do that.
Well, your point about Dobbins and that running game, obviously the defenses have to worry about Lamar Jackson and may leave an opening that Dobbins might not get with some other team.
Yeah, exactly. And they've also got Mark Ingram. They've got other guys there in that backfield that it's going to be a pretty talented, pretty crowded backfield situation. I think it's interesting, though, that Dobbins has always had a guy that's had kind of a chip on his shoulder, whether it was not running that well as a sophomore. Just never seemed satisfied, even when he had great games this past year as a junior. And he's going into a situation where that kind of that kind of mentality is probably going to help him, because there's going to be a lot of competition to get carries in that backfield.
Well, the other thing is he's a little bit different than the backs that they have. The other backs that they have are more of the the bruisers, not as much of a breakaway guy. So I think if you're J.K. Dobbins, you give the Ravens something on the ground that they didn't have before they drafted him. Obviously, that's why they took him. The other thing is Mark Ingram's piling up the carries, and the shelf life of an NFL running back isn't that long. So Dobbins is in a good spot without question.
I think so. I think the one thing that's kind of unfortunate for him is he really showed his durability during his time at Ohio State, and especially as a junior this past year, he really carried them, and down the stretch, he was the bell cow. He was a guy that they were relying on every week. And even in that Clemson game where he turns the ankle, sprains the ankle, has to leave, comes back, has to leave again, comes back, and then finishes the game strong. But that injury kept him out of the combine, and then obviously with everything that's happened since then, players didn't have pro days, players didn't get to go to workouts and visits. I imagine we'll find out later that probably played a role in why he fell as far as he did. Like I said, it actually ended up, I think, maybe a positive thing for him to fall to the team that he went to, because they are set up to really allow a running back to thrive.
Of the 7 that were taken over the 2 days of the draft, anybody surprise you going way up or way down where you thought they should have been?
Well, Damon Arnett going as high as he did surprised me. I know Kerry Combs, the defensive coordinator, who's back at OSU and who had recruited him to Ohio State back in 2015, he kind of predicted it when he talked to us and said, hey, he's going to go, don't be surprised at how high he goes in the draft. But I still was. I thought when he said that, he was talking about, whoa, this guy might be able to sneak into the first round. But to go all the way up at 19, and to also have the Raiders talking about how they had essentially passed up potential trade opportunities because they were worried that if they took one and fell back a few spots, that Arnett might not be there anymore. That surprised me, and it's interesting that someone who doesn't have a lot of size, doesn't have a lot of speed, was productive at Ohio State, but necessarily doesn't fit some of the parameters that you see now in a first-round NFL cornerback. Someone that was apparently coveted that highly by maybe not just Raiders, by other teams. That caught me by surprise.
We're getting ready for day 3, so several more rounds. Who are some names from Ohio State that we might hear called in day 3 of the NFL draft?
KJ Hill was the one guy that I thought might have a chance to rise up into the 3rd round and give them 8 picks for these first 3 rounds. I would be pretty surprised if he fell out of the 4th or maybe into the top of the 5th, but a really productive slot receiver, kind of a prototypical slot receiver. I think there's a lot of NFL teams that could see someone with his skill set slotting right in. And someone else, I think, Jordan Fuller, Brandon Bowen, guys like that who are not necessarily projected as frontline guys in the NFL, but you can see a place on a roster where those guys can help because of either their versatility, in Bowen's case as an offensive lineman, or Fuller just being a really steady, productive guy and the kind of player you want in your locker room, a lot of leadership qualities, and those things still do matter in the NFL.
Nathan Baird, beat reporter for the Ohio State Buckeyes here on cleveland.com. We appreciate the time and insight as always. Well, final thought on this day 2 of the NFL draft as we wrap it up here.
I think that most people will look at what the Browns did if you combine yesterday and today, probably looking at a BB plus area, I would think. Again, they're going to have to get lucky with one of the guys they took later in the rounds today. But I think yesterday was a big day for them, and it'll help move that grade up.
Join us tomorrow night for another wrap-up of the NFL Day 3, and we'll put a whole bow on the entire Browns draft. We'll see you then. So for Les Levine, I'm Dave Bacon. Have a great night. We'll see you again tomorrow night here on More Sports and Les Levine.